welcome to the Total Soccer Show World Cup Daily. England are through and Bellingham and Kane bumped up their stats, but it wasn't easy against the nation with the canals and the hats. Colombia and Portugal finished 0-0 in a game that provided a surprising amount of thrills, but the wildest draw of the night didn't feature a team from Iberia. It was Austria's epic against Algeria. My name's Ryan Bailey. It's a two-hander today. Hello, Taylor Rockwell. I can barely say my own name. How are you?
I am doing splendid, my friend. A great introduction. The Panama hat thing took me a moment because I was thinking of like the Croatian fans who all wear the water polo gear. And I was like, do Panamanians wear specialty hats? And then I remembered Panama hats. Ryan, nice work by you, especially on, I'm assuming, like 80 minutes of sleep roughly over the last 2 nights.
Indeed, yes. We have both had our respective sojourns back to the East Coast. It's why we're a two-hander. Joe and Graham very much still travelling. Graham trapped Tom Hanks in that movie in the airport at the moment at Heathrow, unfortunately. But
Dude, I felt so bad getting that message from him because I had a 4-hour layover in Chicago, which is not nearly the same. But a 4-hour layover from 4 to 8 a.m., is a weird time to be uncomfortable and not quite awake in an airport. And I was reminded of a time, like, a friend of mine had his, like, I think it was, like, his traveler's check stolen and his, like, something else stolen that meant that he was, like, trapped in a terminal for literally 3 days and just couldn't go anywhere and had no money. So survived off of, like, ketchup and entertaining himself. And I don't know how you do that. But I'm guessing we'll get some stories from Graham about how he kept himself occupied. It seems like, based on his messages, it was reading angry articles about Scotland and then getting even angrier.
So now I've got two questions.
Yes.
Are traveller's checks still a thing? Still a thing.
Yeah.
And do people in Panama actually wear Panama hats?
I'm going to guess no to the second one. That feels like the domain of the white male American. Maybe just the male in general. I could be wrong. But that does feel like a British introduction that then took hold. And I don't know if traveler's checks are still a thing. I forget. It was like he lost something and then had something stolen like in a 1-2 punch. Ooh. And thus like couldn't, like, maybe he had his passport but didn't have like the ability to leave the airport and get back in. So he was kind of like trapped in this one specific terminal for a few days. Not ideal for him. I think he had scheduled, it was in Dubai, and I think he'd scheduled to have like a 3-day layover, and he was going to go see the sights and do all the things. And that's what happens when you try to visit Dubai. You get trapped in an airport. Let that be a lesson.
Okay, that's noted. Thank you very much. Well, quite a few teams will be heading to airports using their passports.
There we go.
Because they are eliminated. We've got lots who are going through as well. We're going to get to that very shortly. Before we do, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is the best way to support us. We have bonus episodes, bonus video, access to our Discord server. We're no longer together in our Los Angeles World Cup headquarters, but we are still coming at you all of the World Cup match days. We're in the business end, Taylor. We're in the meaty end of this. The groups are officially done. 215 goals from 72 games, an average of 2.99 goals per game. Pretty good.
Really good. Really good. I thought you were going to say 200 plus games played, because that's kind of what it feels like. But it was a very strong group stage. I am happy for the group stage to be over. I think we talked about this like on day 2 of the final match day, that it felt like some of these were kind of playing out with like dead rubber-esque vibes. And I'm not saying that was the case with these games. I think some of them were fascinating. But still, with the way it ended and kind of the permutations and who went through and who didn't, there was the drama there. But it wasn't the full knockout round drama. And I think we have reached the point where I am ready for some knockout round drama, some eliminations, some feistiness along the way. The stage is set, Mr. Bailey, and I am here for it. If not in person with you, which I am still sad about. No fireworks at all. No strange animals running at us. It feels like we're missing something. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, give it time.
Okay.
Yeah, it could happen for us still. We're going to talk about the last remaining group stage games from Saturday's round of play. Before we get there, Taylor, can I I've got some beef. Something's ground my gears.
Uh-oh.
It's the scheduling over this past weekend. So we had on Saturday the game starting at 5 Eastern.
Yeah.
So the game starting in 11 p.m. if you're in Central Europe and going through the night. Only one game scheduled for Sunday as we record at 3 p.m. Eastern. So on a weekend at the end of the group stage, why are there fewer games than there were on the weekdays when you could have had a full slate starting at like 12 Eastern. So like that Europe and the rest of the world could have a whole bunch of games. Why did they? What? I don't understand. What's
It'd be too
on?
easy. That's why. It'd just be too convenient. Ryan is like much more like organized and scheduled than I. I would love to be more like Ryan Bailey. So I'm guessing this has not been the case for him. But for me, a person who is kind of constantly worried that maybe I've missed something, I checked so many different websites and so many different schedules because I was like, there has to be something I'm missing. There must be 3 games on Sunday. I must just be looking at the wrong thing. I'm looking at the Fox broadcast schedule, not the full broadcast schedule. I have been very flummoxed by this choice. And I assume it's just a matter of like scheduling and you have to get like the logistics right so everybody can travel and everybody has a day. But they wanted to get it rolling. They didn't want to take a day off. So they have the one as the kind of like getting to know you period of the knockout round. But I'm with you. On the weekend, it feels like you could have scheduled a few more. But instead, we've just got a packed week ahead of us, and I am still excited for it, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Does feel like an L from FIFA there. And talking of L, why don't we start off with Group L and England's 2-0 win over Panama. I would say not a convincing win from England, not 100% convincing, but the phrase we're hearing a lot is job done. Jude Bellingham and Harry Kane with the goals in this one. Harry Kane breaking Gary Lineker's World Cup scoring record. Harry Kane now on 11 goals for the Three Lions, I'm sure.
Is Lineker going to let that stand? Is he going to come out of retirement knowing how competitive he is? We've seen the darts on the Netflix show. I feel like he's going to try to find a way to come back and break that record himself.
I think he will. Judging by the gym regimen I've heard he does, I'm sure he's quite fighting fit to come back and do that as well. But with the England game here, Taylor, in New York, it felt to me like we were history repeating itself from a few days ago. The first half, at least, was a bit like the Ghana poor first half. This England team does seem to be a bit of a second half team. Maybe that's a theme that's developing, certainly in the group stage here. England fans, a lot of them were expecting a big scoreline here. When England played Panama last in the 2018 World Cup, it was a 6-1 win. This was, in the end, a comfortable 2-0 win. But there were moments. Panama were unlucky not to score, and Panama were not set up like Ghana were. I was actually pleased to see them coming forward and go for it as well, Taylor.
I agree, and I was surprised by how open they were. I was also surprised by how many, not like very good chances, because I think the XG was still pretty low. I think the number of shots was still relatively low for Panama. But there was still like attempts taken. It wasn't just pack everybody behind the ball and hold on for dear life, which is a testament to them that I think there was a recognition they needed to get something out of this game, and they weren't just playing for like a pride point. So in that way, I think like it's credit to them. I do also still think at the same time it's credit to England. And like you know, given what you've already said, you might have expected this to be a thumping, a resounding win, especially with how good England looked against Croatia, and then how uneven, I guess is putting it generously, they looked against Ghana. Maybe this could have been an opportunity for them to come out and just like reassert authority. But at the same time, if you win this game 5-0, it still feels a little bit like job done, which is not attempting to be discourteous to Panama. It's just I don't think that would have fully moved the needle for anybody, because it does feel like a lot of these teams are just like, let's get to the knockouts and then we can show who we are. And now that's where England find themselves. They also find themselves there with a right back. Is that where we are at this point with injuries? How are you feeling about that?
It's a little bit thin back there, I suppose. So we had some issues at right back, shall we say. Jarrell Kwanzaa starting off his first time playing at right back in the World Cup, certainly. Did seem to kind of maybe lack the passing range that Reece James would have done. Obviously came off the ankle injury as well, so we had Jed Spence also filling that role. I don't know who's going to do it next time around. We'll see, because maybe it's your turn, Taylor? Yeah, it could be Harry Kane. I don't know. But I think to credit Jed Spence, he did keep it simple. I suppose he didn't have a lot to do, so like job done once again for Jed Spence. But it does feel like there might have been another option or two to bring out with this squad, and maybe with hindsight we'll see that.
That's it. We have all the right backs here. None were left at home. Don't fact check that, says Thomas Tuchel. Who did he have the audacity to say like who could have seen this coming with Reece James? Is that what I saw?
Something like that. What, the perennially injured Reece James? Yeah, that one.
the Reece James that when Ryan saw the lineup was like, but they're all injury prone. What are we going to do? And I said, they're going to be fine. What are you talking about? Tommy Tukes knows what he's doing, and I still think he does. But it is now a very interesting round of the bracket, because I think we'll get maybe into the bracket later on, but You've got DR Congo, who've obviously shown themselves to have like a good amount of grit. They've got some attacking ability. They've been really strong defensively. There are players who play in the Premier League in that team, so there's going to be familiarity there. But that bracket, you've got Brazil in there. Yes, I'm not trying to be discourteous. It feels like it's one where England should be able to make a run. And so in that way, they have, I think, met expectations. They've topped the group, gotten out, scored some goals, looked pretty comfortable. But now can you kind of not let the occasion overwhelm you? Because in these group stage games, like having started off the way they did against Croatia, and I still weight that performance very highly, how strong they looked, how many ideas they had against a Croatia team that were a bit more open. Now, Panama being a little bit open and England still having some issues is a slight red flag. But I think overall, like we've seen England stay patient and kind of back themselves to make something happen, and they have so far. But now you get to the knockout rounds where you kind of can't have that level of complacency or level of calm, I suppose is a way to put it, that like you have to kind of go out there and keep the momentum going. You have to kind of keep pedal to the metal. Otherwise, you risk extra time and then penalties, and you don't want to go down that road. So I think it will be really fascinating to see what England shows up in that knockout round and how much pressure they are feeling to perform, and then how much they're able to kind of meet that pressure and overcome it. I still have a ton of faith that we're going to see England make a very deep run at this tournament. I'm wondering if you feel the same, Ryan. I think you previously said like you'll really start to feel it once we get to the knockout rounds, and here we are.
Yeah, I think what I'll say, Taylor, is I think we've got the full gambit of England performances so far in the group stage. The first game of the tournament contender, really expansive, really optimistic. Second game, you'd be punishing someone if you asked them to watch it a second time, I would suggest. Maybe that was due to the fact that Ghana weren't really interested in playing much soccer in that game, which fair play to them. That was their objective, to get the draw. And then this game where it was the slightly underwhelming but just about job done, which we are also accustomed to. So it feels like we've got the full hand of England games here. But I do have the faith that this team is designed to play those more expansive teams later in the knockout rounds. Which is to say, against DR Congo in the round of 32, I think we're going to get another team that's going to sit pretty deep and make this an unattractive proposition for England fans, even if we do manage to overcome DR Congo, which one would hope England would do. But like Thomas Tuchel after the game, he said, we did what was needed. It was what we expected, a tough match against a physical opponent. We were the only team to create this amount of chances and score twice against them. So there are kind of silver linings on everything, I would say, in this. And actually, to talk about Panama as well, who I'll credit them trying to get forward on several occasions. They had that offside chance, which it was reasonably tight when they scored that offside chance on the break. They didn't CONCACAF England, if I can use that as a verb, or try to be overly physical. That was one of my fears as well. I was fearing that a few injuries would be picked up beyond the right back position and due to some robust play, but that didn't happen either. So I was pleased to see that too.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I think, like, we've talked about this previously, but to restate, like, you're kind of in a no-win situation in this group if you're Thomas Tuchel in England and England in general, that especially if you draw to Croatia, I for sure thought this was going to be a group in which you all draw Croatia, as you did. Maybe there's some goals scored, maybe there weren't, and then you win these next two games. Now you got 7 points. Now you're through either in first or second, depending on whatever Croatia did. To have won that game and started so strongly and then kind of gotten the results you needed puts you comfortably top of the group, obviously. But it also means that like you have had to experiment. You have had tests. There have been like adjustments that have needed to be made. You've had different personnel involved. And there is like, if England do make a run, I think you can look back on this group stage as being a good round of games in which they had to kind of find ways through, raise their performance level, make sure everybody understood assignments, adjust those assignments based on what the opposition was doing, still see out games and keep clean sheets. So it's been a very useful group stage in a group that didn't feel like it was going to be fully challenging for England. It doesn't seem like it ever fully was, but it also does seem like enough was learned that you're not going into the knockout round like, I don't know, like we drew Croatia and we barely beat this team and we barely beat that team. Like, hopefully they turn it on now. I still have that hope for you, but also because I think England have been a very fun team at times and I think could be again. But I think we may well see an England team that comes out with more answers than they would have had otherwise in tournaments past. That's my hope, at least. Maybe that's like an aspirational belief or a hopeful belief, and maybe I'm about to be crushed in my naivete, as I was with my optimism for Scotland. But I still think that England are in a better position than I thought they would be heading into the knockout round.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I was very nervous during this game, particularly while it was 0-0 Taylor, because that when Croatia were ahead, and they finished ahead, obviously, Croatia were winning the group, and that would have put us against Portugal in the next round, in a round of 32, which Croatia have against them, which is a very stern test for them.
Yeah.
It would have put us on the same side of the bracket as Germany, France, and Spain, which has now been avoided. We've got Argentina, obviously, on the side of the bracket that England are in now, so it's no easy feat. But I think we've landed on a much easier side of the bracket by getting this win, so it's a really valuable exercise for England to get the win. I think we also learned quite a lot about this team.
Yeah.
Like the defensive midfield, for example, Elliot Anderson was superb here, but he was kind of... It felt like... a few of his teammates had, what's the analogy I'm looking for here? Someone who's actually massively overstretched. A teacher and three of the other teachers haven't shown up on a school field trip, basically, trying to do everything there because he had effectively had Jude Bellingham next to him in the Declan Rice role, but he didn't at the same time. It was basically two number 10s that England were operating in this game, which is good for Jude Bellingham. He did have a slightly deeper role, and he showed how much of an X factor he is in this team, but he's not Declan Rice. Declan Rice was, I think, rested because he was on a yellow card, which got cleared for this game, obviously, and maybe needed a bit of rehab and rest going into the knockout rounds. But I thought Jude Bellingham this game was an example of how he is a huge X factor for this team. Goal and an assist, obviously, playing kind of a dual role where he had to be a number 10 and also be a bit further back on the field as well. And both England goals basically came from Bellingham doing what the wingers weren't doing. He was getting behind the line of defence. He was going to the byline, forcing the defenders to kind of face their own goal. And Rashford and Saka, as good as they were in this game, they weren't doing what he was doing because he was kind of everywhere. So I was really, really impressed with how much of a focal point Jude Bellingham was in this game as well. So that gave me optimism, even though he was being asked to do too much, I would say.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like when backs are against the wall, you need somebody to just stick a foot out and see what happens. I mean, and that is really what that first goal comes from, is just reaching around the defender and getting a foot to it first and putting it on frame, and it ends up in the back of the net. And like, I don't want to extrapolate too much from that goal, he says, as he's about to do just that. But that is also like what Jude Bellingham is in my mind, at least for England and at times for Real Madrid, is he's just a player who can make things happen. And you're totally right to spotlight the assist and how good he was, how many like little feints and step overs, steints apparently, if you combine those words, he did to kind of create that little gap. To then
it's been a while, didn't they? That was their song, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, good.
Wow. But I thought he was a difference maker for England in terms of the kind of confidence and next level ability, like how much he can elevate to an 11 out of 10 when you need him to. But simultaneously, there is just a like pragmatism to just get a foot on it and make something happen. And you need that resolve and that sort of stick-to-itiveness, I think, as you go further in the tournament. And to have him in there, being able to do a number of different roles, even if it means Elliot Anderson is the overworked teacher trying to balance the field trip, or maybe just the overworked parent who had to deal with children while, say, their partners were away in California for weeks at a time. They still, I think, ended up finding a balance and finding a way through. And I will add, one final note on this one for me, is just that it's worth remembering Joe Lowry is very good at what he does. Joe Lowry always has very good insight into the games we watch and the teams we talk about. And he made a point over and over again that this Panama team were going to be more challenging than people might expect. And then they came and, I think, proved that in this group stage, despite not having their two starting central midfielders able to play. So I think if you expected this to be that same Panama team that rolled over and let England just kind of put them to the sword, and then you saw this result, you might think, this is worrying. This is England still like having that inability to perform when you need them to. But I think if you give Panama the credit that they are due, and also understand that they were trying to make life very difficult for England, it's not like a resounding win that, sends you on to the next round. But at the same time, it's a comfortable win that was necessary and gave you more opportunity to experiment. So I think in the end, a strong showing by Panama, but just that slightly stronger showing by England.
That's right, and I am remaining optimistic, Taylor, because of that Croatia performance. Because of
starting to be
from the last 10 minutes. Let's say that. I think I saw a stat that of the 22 World Cup winners, 5 won all their group games. So it's not a common thing to be coming out of the gates. I think is it Mexico and who are only 2 teams have won all their games. Argentina and Mexico. Mexico and Argentina are the 2 teams who actually won all 3 of their group stage games. Which isn't to say they're both going to go all the way, right? Which Argentina obviously would aspire to do so. But my point being that this is the group stage. It is an entirely different beast to the knockout rounds,
yep.
And there is the expectation to get through against teams who are going to play differently, who are going to play in the knockout rounds, as we all know. So I think I remain focused on the fact that this team is set up to go the distance, shall we say. And I might be made to look foolish when England are out in the round of 16 at the Azteca in a few days' time. But hey, here's to hoping.
I don't think you will look foolish. And if you do, then I will too, because I've been pretty bullish on England. I also think that you don't have, to my mind, aside from still the looming roster conversation, and as we've said, if this goes poorly for England and if they are knocked out by DR Congo or Ecuador or Mexico in the next round, it will be a bigger talking point and a lot of fingers will be pointed at Thomas Tuchel. So I think that's justifiable. But you don't have the other sideshow conversations that you might have had in tournaments past where if Harry Kane isn't scoring, what's the problem? The system isn't working? How are we not getting the best out of Kane? If Jude Bellingham hasn't had strong performances or goals, that's a talking point. If Elliot Anderson isn't rising to the occasion and chaperoning 14 children at once, you would have these kind of distracting talking points and lingering concerns that get exploited and built upon as you go into the knockout round. To my mind, it's basically you have an injured right back and maybe another injured right back, so who starts there? Which is a concern. You want your full strength team if you can have it, but you don't have suspensions, you don't have misfiring players, you don't have an inability to score goals, you don't have a leaky defense or anything like that. I just don't see obvious areas that can cause stress and cause fractures and division in the locker room or anything like that. It still feels like a pretty comfortable England team thus far.
For now, yes.
For now.
Taylor, we shall see. Indeed. As you noted, DR Congo are up next for England in Atlanta on Wednesday. Very much looking forward to that midday kickoff in Atlanta on Wednesday. I do fear it's going to be Ghana-esque in terms of the setup that DR Congo will have, but we will see there. By the way, can we just say DR Congo through 10 African teams at this tournament for the first time, 9 are through. That is absolutely awesome for CAF.
It absolutely is, and it is again why I have come around to the 48 team format. Even if I don't love the third place thing, I don't love how little those final games felt like they mattered in terms of who was going to get through, because ultimately pretty much everybody got through. So sad for Iran, but we'll talk about them later. But at the same time, with the expanded format, with the number of games, you do have more African teams qualifying and more teams not having kind of the cruel qualifying history that we've seen in the past where you make it all the way and then you still have to play one more game and then you lose that and now you're done. We have more teams at this tournament, and I think that has led to more players committing to those African nations, dual nationals who maybe could have gone a different way. Here's an opportunity to play at a World Cup. So I'm going to commit. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to go play. And we have more talent, and thus we have more teams getting through. And in DR Congo against Uzbekistan, to talk about that for a moment, you have a team that responded, that went down early to an Uzbek team that hasn't been particularly strong at this tournament, but gets that goal. And then I think we're comfortable to make life very difficult for a DR Congo team that themselves have made life difficult for others. And I haven't thought of them, Congo, as a team that are particularly attacking and have a ton of attacking flair. They have good goal scorers, they have playmakers, but we haven't really had to see them fully fight back. And there have been other teams in this tournament that have been put in that same position and maybe found an equalizer, but sometimes couldn't find anything. And I was really interested if we would see Congo respond and how they would respond. And it takes till the second half, and it takes some adjustments, but then they get the 3 goals, one of which obviously is a penalty, but still, you got to take them, you got to make them count, and Congo did. But it's also the adjustments, it's the changes, and it's the kind of commitment to the attack and making those goals happen and wresting control back. That is also what you need to build confidence heading into the knockout round.
Yes, indeed. All right, we take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about that game. We'll talk about Colombia's entertaining draw with Portugal, the epic between Algeria and Austria, and much more. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to World Cup Daily. Let's turn our attention to the other game in Group L real quick. Croatia 2, Ghana 1. Nikola Vlasic scoring a late header for Croatia to book their place in the round of 32. Petar Sucic opening the scoring in the first half with a lovely long-range strike as well. Ghana equalising in this game with a really nice set-piece routine as well. This was a different Ghana side I would offer than the one that England played. 6 shots on goal for a start in this one. And we have Croatia finishing second in the group on 6 points. And as noted, they now have Portugal on July 2nd in Toronto. So that's a pretty robust tie for Croatia to get through. Finalists in 2018, semi-finalists in 2022. I'm not sure they're getting beyond the 32 at this tournament, though. I don't know how you feel about that, Taylor.
I feel conflicted because, I still thought against England there were reasons for optimism for Croatia, and obviously they have now performed and gotten out of the group, but there are still vulnerabilities in that team that become more apparent, and there are weaknesses in the attack. There are questions about that midfield, which has for so long been their obvious source of strength with the talent they have, specifically Luka Modric. But now we reach the point with Modric and Kovacic of one is a bit older, one has played very few minutes this season. Can they do what's going to be asked of them, and can they kind of wrest control of the game at times from a strong Portugal team who themselves have looked inefficient and ineffective? And so it's a weird, a stoppable force meets a movable object, and which one ends up becoming the unstoppable force or the unmovable object. Both of these teams have a good amount of vulnerability to them and a good amount of questions about them coming into this round. I think Croatia will have far less pressure on them. And I think that is where they are most comfortable, is when there is an expectation, when they are sort of being overlooked or maybe written off because the other team is perceived as being stronger or has more talent or has more narrative. That historically is where Croatia can spring some surprises. But against Ghana, they didn't have... If they had the majority of possession, it was much closer than I expected. They didn't have as many chances. They had a significantly smaller XG against Ghana. And it's a Ghana team that I think have looked stronger and grown into the tournament. And even with this result, I think still can be very strong in the knockout rounds. I think I am much more cautiously bullish about this Croatia team, even with the issues they have. I think some of that might be informed by who their opponent will be and the issues they continue to have.
Yes, more on that a little later on. And Ghana, by the way, playing Colombia on July 3rd in Kansas. That's an interesting matchup for them.
Interesting is the word.
Yeah. By the way, this Croatia win did officially confirm Scotland's elimination from the tournament. And minutes after that, Steve Clarke announced he stepped down. So Steve Clarke has stepped down a couple of months into a 4-year contract. Feels very Chelsea-esque to me. Nice.
Yeah, feels like maybe there were some things going on behind the scenes that we're going to learn more about as time passes. But Graham had spoken a little bit about that, about how teams that were still theoretically alive were still training, were still sort of treating it as though we expect to be there in the knockout rounds, so we are preparing accordingly. We hadn't really seen nearly as much of that from Scotland. And for that decision to come through as swiftly as it did, combined with the way Scotland just didn't really seem, to some extent, up for the occasion. Certainly their supporters were, but the team itself didn't perform. It does make me think that there was some fractures in that team that I think maybe we'll hear more about, if not from the broader media, then at least from one of our co-hosts in the near future.
Yes, indeed. Seems like there's more of a story to tell from the Scottish camp indeed. Why don't we go to Group K, where we had Colombia's 0-0 against Portugal in Miami. A very, very Colombian crowd. You can see it was a sea of yellow at the Hard Rock Stadium. The Florida Stadium? I don't know what we're calling it. This was a pretty entertaining 0-0, though. Both teams had already qualified. There was a risk it would be a bit of a going through the motions thing, but it was high quality. The crowd were definitely up for it. We had 37 shots in this game, 24 of them from Colombia. Colombia's first goalless draw in 25 World Cup matches. I previewed Colombia. I think it might have been VSP related, or at least mentioned I didn't expect them to get any goalless games in this tournament, but here we are. But congrats to Colombia for topping Group K in this one, almost getting the win as well. Davinson Sanchez with that late potential winner denied by the most marginal of marginal offside calls. I know it was the right decision. I know the technology has shown us he was offside by the fabric of the right tip of his boot, but come on now. It was his boot. It was a header. I didn't like it. Didn't like it, Taylor.
Yeah. I mean, for every one of those, I've had so many, I think, conversations in which I annoy the person on the other side of them, because people watching that game with me were complaining about that. Like, that just seems so unfair. It's like, well, what do you want? Do you want the alternative where they're getting away with an offside goal? Like, you don't. It feels wrong, but here we are, and it becomes the narrative. But even with that said, I thought Colombia were really impressive in this game. And I thought a really interesting aspect of things was that when James Rodriguez comes off in the second half, he comes off late. I thought in some ways they looked better and more dangerous because they're not sort of having to... I don't want that to sound like a criticism, because it's not. When you have a player like James Rodriguez who has been so important for your team, you do build around them. And you do have a lot of flexibility for that player, and they can move where they want and try to kind of drift around to create overloads or find space to operate within. But that does mean the rest of the team has to adjust. They have to move around their positioning. They have to make sure they have defensive stability to deal with him maybe drifting away, and now you've got a vacant side, so somebody has to stay home. And I felt like once he left, they were able to be more direct in their approach. I think understand their assignments a little bit more. I thought the way they defended with him, but then without him, was really aggressive and proactive and committing numbers higher up and trying to hassle Portugal and just really disrupt everything Portugal were doing. And I think this is a Portugal team that have so much talent and ability. If you let them gain confidence and start just getting more opportunities, and that shot was close and that pass almost came off, the more those almosts happen, the more I think they become realities instead of almost possibilities. And so in that way, I think Colombia disrupting Portugal and causing them problems and asking questions of them in the attack, which I understand is now a phrase we're not supposed to say, asking questions, but here we are, I'm saying it anyway. I thought this was a really good performance from Colombia, and I thought it was a fine performance from Portugal. Once again, I'm not really as all in on the Ronaldo is going to be the downfall of this Portugal team. I don't think he looked great. I'm not sure anyone on the team looked great in this game, and maybe that is then part of Ronaldo leading the line and demanding opportunities and whatnot. But I came away not wanting to praise Colombia less than criticize Portugal. I think Colombia deserve a ton of credit for the way this played out and the fact that they topped the group at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100%. I will say I agree with you on the Portugal side of things. I know Bruno Fernandes had a half-decent game here. Diogo Costa made 6 saves. I think he was probably their MVP.
The foot save was fun.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he had a few moments. Obviously, Colombia were peppering the goal in this one, so I was very impressed with him. And Ronaldo, slightly more peripheral than he was against Uzbekistan, maybe because it wasn't Uzbekistan that he was playing here. But
yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think part of me, if I'm being fully transparent, part of me is that it feels like the narrative has been to pile on Ronaldo. And I get why that narrative is there, and I get why that inclination is there, and his supporters don't make it easy to defend him, and I'm not going to defend him. But there's that thing of am I criticizing Ronaldo because it's justified, or am I criticizing Ronaldo because everyone is criticizing Ronaldo? So why not pile on? It's open season. I think that there are reasons to criticize him specifically and his role within this team in this game. But I still don't think he's the problem. I think a lot of that is Roberto Martinez not making adjustments he should make, and maybe that includes not taking Ronaldo off against a Colombia team that did exactly what I think you need to do to frustrate this Portugal team. You get numbers back if they're able to bypass your press, and once you do, you keep those numbers central and you clog all your options through the middle so that Portugal have to go wide, and then you have at least a defender there to kind of hassle and make sure that it's not a cross in which the attacker has the time to take a touch, take another touch, pick out their man, and then play the ball in. If you're clogging the middle and then forcing those crosses to come in, maybe not quite as precisely or with not quite the level of time that maybe the attacker wants, I think you're creating an opportunity then for your defense to clear, your goalkeeper to come get it. I thought Vargas in goal for Colombia did a very good job of that. So too did Davinson Sanchez and Lukumi, the two center backs. And it just didn't seem like Portugal had other ideas. It felt like an England performance of tournaments past, where it's just like, well, I guess more crosses. Maybe we'll try to get like Pedro Neto charging at defenders. I thought he was another bright spot for Portugal, but ultimately wasn't as effective or efficient. So, like, it's a weird one in which I understand why you can't take Ronaldo off. I also think some of the blame and criticism of him has been overblown. But as this game goes on, it does feel like Martinez is hesitant to pull Ronaldo off, because if you then lose or you don't get the result, you know what the headlines are going to be. You know you're probably going to annoy your star player. But at the same time, keeping him there, I think, doesn't allow them to have more different looks as the game goes on. And that is a question that they're going to be asked against. See, they're going asking questions against Croatia in the knockout round. And like, again, contrasting them with England, I don't know if Portugal found answers and solutions to questions in the group stage. It felt like their solution is overpower like weaker opposition and then keep the pedal to the metal. And then against teams that are bunkering, it's sort of like, I don't know, don't make obvious mistakes and give them an opportunity. But I'm not sure we found like solutions, or we saw Portugal truly find ways through that can be replicated in the knockout round.
Can I ask a question? Why can't we say asking questions now?
That seems to be a British expression that Americans don't enjoy. I think it's a useful way of basically saying, like, you made life difficult for your opponent. You made them have to like deal with what you were throwing at them, even if it wasn't the same thing over and over again. Maybe you had a winger pop up and put in a cross, but now you had your like creative number 10 try to dribble through. But now maybe there's another winger. Now you've got an overlapping fullback. To me, it's a way of saying you threw lots of different looks at a defense, and they kind of responded or didn't, but you asked a lot of questions of that defense. It seems to be, I think the frustration is when it becomes a catch-all phrase for like, yeah, they were good in the attack, they asked a lot of questions. Like it can be kind of that throwaway, I don't know, overly utilized line, but I think it still serves a purpose, I guess, specifically when I use it, but not anyone else. You can use it too, right? It's fine.
Yeah, I'm asking questions of this asking questions narrative, frankly, because I think it's fine. Anyway, Portugal, as noted, will play Croatia in the round of 32, and Colombia will face Ghana. The other game from this group, as earlier referenced, was the DR Congo getting a 3-1 win over Uzbekistan. History for the Doc here. Their first tournament win, and they're through to the knockout stage as well. Newcastle striker Johan Wissa getting a brace in this one. And the Uzbeks took a delightful lead through a lovely lob as well in this game as well. And then DR Congo turned it on very much. I like the Miale goal for 2-1 as well. Lovely poacher's finish from the ball coming into the box too. And Wissa with that long ranger for 3-1 as well. I thought it was very, very good. Good game this was, Taylor.
Yeah, especially when you contrast it with the Colombia-Portugal game and everything that was happening or not happening in that one. Not to go back to that one, just like the contrast of DR Congo finding a way through, like coming back from going 1-0 down to get the equalizer, then to take the lead, then to get the kind of insurance goal, to see them kind of piling it on, pouring it on, making things happen, and then to see Portugal basically in the last 2 minutes be like, you know what, no attack. We're just going to recycle possession and pass it between the center backs until time runs out, and everybody seemed very discontent with that at the end of the game. Again, not maybe the vibe you want, contrasting that with DR Congo, who I think have very, very, very good vibes heading into that game against England.
They do indeed. Very much looking forward to that contest. Not to be underestimated, I would say.
Definitely
DR
not.
Congo, certainly not. Uzbekistan finished bottom of the group in this one. They just got their solitary goal against Colombia, so we wave bye-bye to them.
Fabio Cannavaro justifying that, like, he's top 5, right, in terms of, or certainly top 10 in terms of highest paid coaches at this tournament, but I think he might even be in the top 5.
Wow.
Definitely earned that one. Him and Hervé Renard earning that check.
Cannavaro's taking the Renard path, I feel like. He's going to end up in some interesting gigs over the next decade or so.
But at least Renard won stuff. Like, he did win things, maybe not starting with, but, like, I remember him winning AFCON with Zambia, and that being the kind of launching point of, like, here's this guy who can get the best out of teams that maybe don't have a ton of hype around them. Cannavaro just seems to be bouncing from gig. He's a little Gattuso-esque, I think, Cannavaro, in terms of, like, keeps getting gigs. I'm not sure if he's a good manager, but looks like a good one on the touchline. So, yeah, let's roll the dice and see if he can do it this time. So I look forward to him managing, I don't know, Kyrgyzstan or North Korea or whatever it might be in the next World Cup.
Yeah, we'll find out how much further I won the Ballon d'Or stands on your resume as you go around to different federations. We shall see. Very good. All right, that's Group K. We take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about that epic between Algeria and Austria and Leo Messi getting it done once again. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to World Cup Daily. We got to talk about Algeria 3, Austria 3, which I feel, Taylor, was kind of a reminder of why we love this sport. Probably the wildest group game of the tournament. We had 2 goals after the 90-minute mark. Riyad Mahrez scoring twice in this one. Algeria coming twice from behind and then leading before earning the point to qualify for the last 32. Austria were heading out until Kadzic's 96-minute leveller in this one. I saw a clip of local commentary, by the way, of that goal. There's a Reddit clip of all the local commentaries from yesterday, which I watched, which was very fun indeed.
This one was... How much screaming is involved?
A lot of screaming, a lot of peeking on the microphone, a lot of what we try to avoid on the Total Soccer Show, I'd say. But it was done in the moment, and it was excellent. This one, very, very impactful for Iran as well. They were going through, not going through, going through, not going through as one of the third-place teams. They didn't. They were eliminated after all in this one. And by the way, they're the only team eliminated without losing a game, were Iran. They got 3 draws, which was good enough for Cape Verde to get through. That seems very, very harsh. And Austria, though, credit to them for getting that 96-minute equaliser. Yeah. The first team to avoid defeat in a World Cup, having fallen behind after the 90th minute mark. So a very fun encounter, Taylor.
Absolutely. And I want to start in this game with the obvious way of commiserating with Iran for a moment. A team that did not even play. But I think join New Zealand as having that sort of unfortunate record of not being defeated but still not making it out of the group. They have their own last-second go-ahead goal that would have pushed them into the knockout rounds. That gets canceled out by a very marginal offside. Maybe not even that marginal in the end, and correctly given and all that. But for the moment, for the occasion, for the celebrations, and then for all of that to be changed, and then to be kind of knocked out by these 2 teams playing the way they did, I have such sympathy for the Iranian team and what they went through in this tournament and what they had to overcome in multiple different ways from multiple different sides. I think they can and should and will hold their heads up high, and it feels like such an unfortunate way for them to exit the tournament, but that's the nature of the beast, and that's the nature of the beast when Algeria and Austria come to play. And for a huge chunk of this game, it was sort of going the way I thought it was going to go. Here are my kind of preview notes. Austria want to press, want to make life difficult for their opposition, but with Arnautovic in there, I'm not sure how much they're able to do that, and then I'm not sure how many quick-fire chances they will be able to create against an Algeria team that last we saw them want to press, but don't have the fastest front line, are not going to be particularly direct because they don't want to give up opportunities at the back. And so it felt like a game in which both teams, especially both teams knowing that a draw would be okay, it felt like both of them were going to kind of crowd numbers defensively, crowd numbers centrally, invite the other to beat them. But also neither team was going to be aggressive in trying to find solutions and in terms of trying to find goals. It felt like we were destined for a stodgy 0-0 that had very low XG and very few chances. And then it went a different way. And I do think some of that is erratic performances from Algeria's goalkeeper once again. It's a weird opening goal from Arnautovic. It's also Algeria, I think, being a little bit hoisted by their own petard in terms of not engaging higher up, not putting David Alaba under pressure, and he's the one who plays that direct ball through for Arnautovic to run onto, but then also Algeria not applying pressure high, but still having a high enough line that Marco Arnautovic can run through and cause problems with his blazing speed. It's a really fortunate finish in the end, but it felt like from that moment on, we got the game slowly start to get ratcheted up. It went from a simmer to a boil, and then we got this crazy finish where it's goals and equalizers and goals and equalizers, and I can't believe that Algeria scored what seemed to be the winner, the way they kind of kept going and kept probing and kept trying to make something happen and then did. And then I assumed, okay, that's it. Austria, who haven't really performed at the level we hoped they might, haven't looked really electric or entertaining or they themselves are capable of finding solutions. somehow find a solution and fight their way back to get that equalizer. It's a credit to them. It's a great goal by Kalajic, a player who has been hyped and then not performed, and then hyped and not performed, and now here he is getting a goal. Credit to him. Credit to Algeria for the draw. What a great way to end the group stage. Because, again, it's a group stage that I thought was going to kind of end with a damn squib, and people are rotating, teams aren't really up for it, draws are fine. And we do get a draw here, but it was certainly not the draw that I expected.
No, and there was a draw expected, Taylor, because a draw for both these teams would have been good. There were sniffs that this could have been another disgrace of Gijón. And just a little context for dear listener, that was the disgrace of Gijón was in the 1982 World Cup in Spain, in Gijón, obviously, and it involved both of these teams. It was Germany and Austria. Germany got a 1-0 win over Austria. Both teams basically not playing to the best of their abilities because Algeria had played earlier on, and they knew that a draw was good for both teams to get through. So there was some funny business. That game is the reason why all the group stage games happened simultaneously at all World Cups thereafter. So we did get a draw, but I don't think anyone is accusing these two teams of playing for one, certainly the way it ended up.
What we were, I feel like, being accused of was not having done our homework by Thierry Henry. I don't know, Ryan, if you watched like the pregame for this one, which I don't always do, but I think because the games happened so quickly, like the one ended and the next one started, I left the channel on. And Rebecca Lowe was asking, like, do these teams, like, what's going to make this not a 0-0 draw? Do these teams have a point to prove? And Henry was trying to, like, he was referencing the disgrace of Gijón, but in this, like, I'm not going to do the work for you. You need to go research this. It was a very, like, did I forget to do my homework, Thierry? I don't. Why are you mad at me? I don't know if he was told, like, you can't go into the details or something, but he was very fiery in his, like, go look it up. You do. I can't do it for you. I can't tell you the story, but there is history. There is reasons for this. It was sort of like, do you not know who did what? Is that what's happening here? I feel like you read the Cliff's Notes and maybe can't quite remember the details, so you're telling me to go do it. I don't know why he was annoyed with us, but it seemed like also, like, Alexi at one point, I think, was screaming even more so than he usually does. It ended with Zlatan, I think, delivering a monologue directly to camera about, like, now the tournament begins. It was an interesting day for the Fox broadcast.
That is interesting. And you're telling me I'm doing Thierry Henry's job for him now, for explaining that 1982 scenario. There you go. You're welcome, Thierry.
Ryan, oh, sorry. I have, before we move on, I needed to tell you one more thing that I'm slightly proud of. This was the first game I watched with my wife. The kids were in bed. She stayed up. She wanted to watch a game. I didn't tell her anything. She had a visceral dislike of Marko Arnautovic that made me, like, every time it would cut to him, she would just be like, I don't like him. I don't want to look at him anymore. I don't like his hair. I don't like his face. His celebration when he, like, slow-mo, like, licked his hand and put it to the camera, she was borderline revolted. And I'm not a big Arnautovic fan, so I enjoyed that somehow she instinctively knew she wasn't supposed to enjoy him.
Your Arnautovic hate's transferred by osmosis through the air.
Apparently.
To your wife.
Didn't know it was there.
Indeed. There were a couple other moments I wanted to flag here.
Please.
The Sabitzer's goal for 2-1 was a banger. I enjoyed that very much. The Algeria equaliser, I think it was for 1-1. The ball came... It's the second time this tournament we've seen the ball come off the corner flag and stay in play. Just like it did for the US game. Was it Rayner who did that kickoff, I think? Yeah. We've seen that twice in a tournament. I don't know what the odds are. They must be like 1 in a billion for that to happen twice in a tournament as well. And also, Algeria's 3-2 goal, 110 passes in the build-up. Nicely done by Algeria. But
How many?
110.
Okay. All right, Algeria. I see you. Yep. Nicely done.
Horseshoe style until they got in.
110 passes for a goal, but then also a corner flag for a goal. I think it was Mwene is the defender for Austria who expects that ball to go out of bounds and then sort of has to, like, panic react when suddenly it hasn't gone out of bounds and it's a developing attacking play. And I think goes for the full-on, like, rugby takedown, but even that isn't enough. And then it's Maza, right, who like dribbles through. No, it's Maza who's taken down. It's Mahrez then, right, who dribbles through and finds that goal for Algeria. But it's such a good goal for them. And it's Bengali, excuse me, who ends up finishing that first goal. The goal at the near post, dribble, and then finish emphatically into the near post was very Messi coded in this one. I liked the Sabitzer goal that you mentioned, the cutback instep finish. But then I love that the Mahrez equalizer, the second goal, is kind of the exact same goal. It was weird that both of them did the same thing and both of them scored. So maybe there was a lot of, like, slow possession, both teams doing the same things. Maybe it was the game we expected, but then also the game we didn't expect at the same time.
Indeed. There we go. Great game. Algeria have earned a round of 32 game against Switzerland in Vancouver. And Austria, they're off to SoFi Stadium where they will face Spain. Oh boy, good luck with that one, Austria. One other game to mention, last but certainly not least, was Argentina's 3-1 win over Jordan in Dallas. Messi does Dallas, the sequel. Let's call it that. Messi coming off the bench to score in a record-breaking 7th World Cup game in a row. A nice free kick with him. Not even the nicest free kick that Argentina scored that evening. Lo Celso opening up with a lovely free kick as well. But Taylor, we don't often do the whole Messi give him his flowers thing on Total Soccer Show, but this tournament we've just had to. He is still impacting games consistently, big games. It is absolutely incredible what he is doing at this level at this point. We have to give him his flowers once again.
Absolutely. I mean, he comes in, I think he has a free kick before that he hits well over. And so, like, for the moment, I was like, they're desperate to make something happen here. They want him to get the goal. And then he takes the second one, and it feels like the Messi bot. It's like the machines that, like, you can kill, but then they learn from your technique every time, and they just get stronger. That's a specific reference to, like, one X-Men character, I think. But it's also Lionel Messi, apparently, who's a robot who, like, recalculates when given another opportunity and then somehow hits a perfect free kick. And for Argentina, I think this was a game that they were not fully pressed about. I think they were trying to win, obviously, and they do. But I think if this were the opening game, they may have scored a couple more. We definitely would have gotten a few more Messi goals, and I think it's a credit to Jordan that they get the goal themselves. I love that Altamari comes off the bench and does get himself a World Cup goal against this World Cup team. It felt deserved for the tournament he's had. I think it's a creditable performance from Jordan, who obviously exit the tournament now, but for them to have never made it before, it's just, or at least not made it in a very long time. It's I think a good result, and I think, like, again, their supporters can be proud of the team, the players can be proud of themselves. But when you go up against Messi in Argentina, you're always going to kind of be up for a long evening. And I think it's just worth noting again how much this Argentina team is clearly, like, centered around Lionel Messi, because you have to be. He's the best player in the world. Maybe the best player of all time, I would say yes. Yep. But then also seems to, like, genuinely enjoy him at the same time. It's not that kind of aura of, like, yeah, he's here, and so we all have to bow down, we all have to do whatever he wants. And, like, I think that has been the aura with Argentina at times. I think there are players that maybe find themselves on the outside looking in because they either don't play well with him or have personality conflicts with him. But this team, in the end, then, is so geared around him and cares so much about him and seems to just genuinely love when he succeeds. And when they succeed, it's not just about him, but the enthusiasm for when he scores from the supporters, from his family, but then from his teammates, it does make this Argentina team feel like they have answers to a lot of questions and have the kind of camaraderie, commitment, and chemistry that you need to make a run. So I didn't have them, like, on my, I guess, I mean, you have them on your short list when they're the reigning champions, but it's so difficult to repeat. It didn't feel like a thing that they would be able to do. It felt like one last ride for Messi and we all get to applaud him, but maybe it's not the best of tournaments for him and for Argentina. And instead, here he is scoring ridiculous goals. Here they are scoring plenty of goals. You got, like, more goal scorers on the score sheet, which you want heading into the knockout rounds. So you just have that, like, the monkey off the back for players, but you feel like it is more than just a one-man team. And so I think Argentina also have such levels of chemistry, but, like, positivity heading into the knockout round. And we knew they would, but I didn't know they would to this degree.
Definitely so. The strongest group stage performance of any team, as noted. This is the only goal they conceded in the tournament thus far. They've won all their games. Only them and Mexico have won all their games so far. They looking good. And for narrative fans, if England and Argentina win all of their games going forward, it'll be a semi-final for those two teams in Atlanta. That could be one for the ages. Looking forward to that.
I mean, it's what, Argentina, Cabo Verde.
Yep.
You would assume that goes the way you assume it would go. Australia, Egypt in the next round, and then it's what, Switzerland, Algeria, Colombia, Ghana. Like, that feels like Argentina should be in the semi. For England, like, again, not trying to overlook anybody, but you've got DR Congo, then you've got the winner of Mexico, Ecuador. which puts you into a quarterfinal against, could be Brazil, could be Japan, could be Ivory Coast, could be Norway. It feels like you did well to avoid that part of the bracket. So there's going to be difficult opposition there. But there is a pathway there, and I think England, of those teams on their part of the bracket, like, I truly think Japan are going to cause problems for Brazil. I don't know how that will go, but my money would be on, I think Norway end up getting past Ivory Coast. I don't know. It could go either way, but I still think England have the strongest case to make it to that semifinal. So England, Argentina in the semi would be, I don't know. I don't even know what that would be. We'd have to put Ryan. I don't know what we would do for Ryan. I don't know how we would get you properly like medicated, but also not overly enthusiastic at the same time. It would be a crazy, crazy affair, and I would love for that to be the case.
I might have to get myself down Highway 85 for the fan fest for that one, if it happens. We will see.
Yes, please.
Time will tell. All right, that is World Cup Daily. One more thing to say. 7 teams in the knockout round for the first time. That is South Africa and Canada, who are maybe playing as you listen to this, dear reader, dear listener, whatever, in Los Angeles. Those two.
You're not getting away from the allegations, Ryan, when you start saying things like dear leader. No.
I'm still very tired. I'm sorry, Taylor. Those 2 teams, we've got Bosnia, Ivory Coast, Egypt, Cape Verde, and DL Congo, all making the knockouts for the first time. Obviously, with the caveat that it's a bit easier to make the knockouts this time around, but a tremendous achievement for those teams all the same. Good stuff.
It's more than Uruguay managed.
Yeah, it is. We're going to get over that disappointment anytime soon, are we? Anyway,
who's going to have the better blockbuster expose about what happened? Uruguay or Scotland? We've already started to get the Uruguay ones with like how bad the energy had been, how bad the vibes had been leading into this tournament for like years, apparently now is the headline I saw. So I look forward to more tell-all tales coming out.
Yeah. If there was a grumpy off, who'd be more? Who would win? Bielsa or Steve Clark? Steve Clark would win that. Although it'd be close.
Yeah, if we're just going grumpy, Steve Clark. If we're going like grumpy with a side of hostile, then it's Bielsa, because his post-match interview was very like, what? That was the vibe the whole time. What and no, and then goodbye. He was not.
A lot of his answers were nada.
Yeah, exactly.
Nada. I don't. Thank you very much. De nada. A very aggressive de nada at the end.
It was the most aggressive de nada I have ever heard in my life.
There we go. Legacy 2026. Legacy. Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much indeed for your contributions here. We appreciate you. And just a note to the listener, we are going to revert to our regular recording schedule. So coming at you earlier in the day than we have been from Los Angeles. Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much indeed.
De nada.
Oh, that was a lovely Donada. Thank you very much. And listener, thank you very much for joining us on this one. We appreciate you. We'll be back very shortly to talk about Canada's match with South Africa. We're going to preview the Bosnia game as well. All that coming down the feed. But for now, bye.